Hello, I'm Lynn Onstot with the City of Joplin. Welcome to the show, Joplin Insider. This show is designed to give you kind of a behind-the-scenes look at the City of Joplin. Today, I have two guests with me. To my immediate left is Nick Heatherly, the Director of Public Works. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
And further on is Keith Stammer, the Emergency Management Director for Jasper County and the City of Joplin. Hello.
Hello.
You guys doing okay today?
I'm fine.
Cold day in Joplin.
We're good. Yes.
Cold day,
It's
and
a
that's
cold day.
That's what we're going to talk about. Is this cold weather, winter weather preparation? A lot of times people aren't prepared for it. We've had kind of a nice fall, very warm fall. Here we are in the winter, and we're starting to hear about snow coming in and blustery winds and things of that nature. So I want to talk about the road conditions, mobility, how we get around town, and plus, you know, how to prepare for it if we do get into some disaster situations. So I'm going to start with you, Keith. Just talk a little bit about the preparation during these upcoming cold months and some of the tips and suggestions that you might provide to people that are still wearing shorts and flip-flops.
Oh, you said that well. When my girls were at home, I used to say to them, when things are different, you must act differently.
There you go.
And so things are different right now. It's not like if you get too cold inside, you can go outside where it's warmer.
Right.
Or if your car breaks down on the side of the road, you can just get outside and hoof it in the nice warm weather. It's not the case. So let's just pay attention, please. Start doing some simple things like have a kit in your car. Get some blankets. Put a little bit of water in there and maybe some snacks. The old coffee cans still are great ideas with a candle in them, a little bit of sand in the bottom, and some matches to do for your hands. One of the things a lot of people don't want to think about is yes, we have cell phones, but they tend to run down. So battery chargers are really cheap, and it'd be a good idea to have an extra little battery charger with you.
That's a good idea.
Around the house, not a whole lot different. We do have power outages around here. If you have a fireplace, wonderful. Please make sure you've actually got some wood to go with it. If you don't, there's some things that you can do just to have a small kit at hand, again, and that you can, a similar type thing of what you do as far as a car is concerned, and some kind of a plan as to what you're going to do. It's one thing to have the power out for an hour or two, but what if it's all night long? This happened to us not too many years ago. 2007, we had an ice storm. We actually went down the street and stayed with some friends who had a working fireplace and slept on their living room floor until things started to finally warm back up. But we'd sort of talk to them about that ahead of time just in case.
Right.
So I think the main thing I want to say here is think ahead and realize it's time to start acting differently. And let's do this now instead of when you're in the middle of the snowstorm, in the middle of the ice storm.
That sounds like perfect plans. You mentioned the batteries and being prepared. I know a lot of people, when they're out traveling, they use their GPS on their phones.
Yes.
And I'm a map person. Of course, that's probably showing my age, but I like maps.
Well.
And I have heard of different situations where the GPS takes you the quickest route, but it doesn't show necessarily, you know, maybe the snowed-in route or things of that nature. Any words of advice?
It's very difficult. If you do have your phone with you, you can go many times to like a city website, or if you're out on the road, you can go to MoDOT's website and they will show you which routes are snowed in and which ones are cleared off. I really like your comment though about using the GPS out on the road because unfortunately so many times we don't really know where we are. You know, we had this discussion like if there's a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch and they come on the radio and say for so-and-so county, most people have no idea which county they're in, let alone which road they are on or what mile marker. So being aware of your location will help you a lot in terms of traveling. Thinking about it ahead of time and looking to see what the weather's going to be like, say this weekend or next weekend when you're going to travel for the holidays and where you're going to go, what it looks like the projected weather's going to be, the route you're going to take, what time you're going to be there. I'm a big encourager of try and get there before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Give yourself some time to lose a tire or for there to be traffic or whatever. And then the maps are a wonderful thing, but kind of look at them. We've all heard horror stories about people that just jumped in there and grabbed that map and they found themselves in some cow pasture somewhere. I don't know how many of those are really true, but by the same token, look at that map route that you're being directed and see if that's really the direction you want to go.
Yeah.
I think, let me, if I Kip, jump in here real quick. One of the things about being prepared, you're absolutely right, Keith, on those items, but one of the other things I think we ought to point out is also the public safety side of it, and that is watch your extension cord usage, making sure how you're prepared, and that if you're going to use those types of things, do them properly, do them in a safe manner. Generators are great, but they also have some negative impacts. It's got to be connected properly to your house or to however it's going to be done, making sure they're outside, you don't bring them inside,
Yes.
those kinds of things. So those are the other types of things that in an emergency, you're cold, you're reacting, but you've got to think through that the cure could be worse than the hazard.
Yes, that's a great point, because a lot of times we are moving very quickly, trying to get the family taken care of, and may not hook it up right. So now's the time to check out that generator, get things, and get the extra fuel or things of that nature. Well, if we, heaven forbid, we do have a snow situation or a winter weather storm coming in, how are we notifying our public? How does that happen?
Well, there are several things. On the city's website, we have a Notify Me function that you can go to, joplinmo.org, and there's a Notify Me. And we will put out the latest weather notifications from the National Weather Service as well as other media on the website itself. We can also send out information via texting. We can also publish information to Facebook or to Twitter. And of course, we're also working constantly in conjunction with our 3 television stations, as well as the radio station and the newspaper and other means of media as well. There's not much different when it comes to weather reporting, but there certainly seems to be a very big difference when it comes to weather news receiving. I'm always amazed at the number of people that consider a certain person, a certain station, a certain source to be their favorite way of hearing. And so if they don't hear about the weather from that particular person or source, they're kind of left without information. I would suggest that let's check more than one. Let's check 2 or 3 and see what they have to say.
And the NOAA weather radios still are in effect during the winter, correct?
The NOAA weather radios, thank you, are very much in effect during the winter time. We talk so much about sirens, but really more and more we begin to depend upon the NOAA weather radio. We have apps for our cell phones. What you need probably to know there is most of that information actually originally comes from NOAA to start off with, and then it's processed and filtered through other television or radio stations, and they'll add product to it. But they're very good things in that they're written, and you can go back and read them, and you can reread them again to make sure that you really saw what it had to say. And they'll publish for there the route of the particular storm and when they think the impact is going to happen. They're number one excellent ideas.
Yeah, and we talk about the cell phones and things of that nature. And some people may not be comfortable with a cell phone, maybe our older generation. Well, find a friend, somebody that will call you if you hear those things. Kind of take care of your neighbors. That kind of theory is what I've always heard in the winter.
Yes,
specifically.
Check on your neighbors.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know the city is preparing for all kinds of weather issues at different times. Right now we're doing some leaf pickup, but sometimes we have to stop leaf pickup to move on to winter weather preparation.
That's true. Our equipment is such that we have to do double duty, and so we can be in the middle of doing the leaf pickup and literally have to drive back to our base and unload all those leaf boxes and load up all the salt spreaders and go back out with them and the plows on to do double duty. So we don't have duplicity of equipment, so to speak, to do that.
Well, how do you, how many trucks, I guess, do you have, and how do you, with the shifts that you have to run, because obviously you're running 24/7 when we get into a weather situation?
Correct. We've got 13 trucks that we use that we'll put spreaders on, and we'll have plows on, and then we'll assign them to very specific routes that we have. And those routes pretty well create a grid throughout the community on, I'll call it your major routes, your arterials, your collectors. We focus very heavily on obviously making sure that the pathways and the routes to the hospitals are open on the front end. Those will be a critical path. And then we basically go from there as far as priority level. We'll do those arterials and collectors first, and then we'll move to business and industry type routes, trying to get people to work and to the store, wherever they need to be.
Okay, so when you say arterials and collectors, help people understand what kind of streets are those?
Well, this will be your major routes like Maiden Lane and 26th and Schiffer-Decker and Main Street, those types of things.
Those large 4 lanes.
Those large where the most traffic goes. And when you look at our snow route map, we coordinate.
I might see, I know that we brought that in. There it is. It's on.
There it is.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to ascertain all the different lines, but the heavier lines, the different colored lines, show all the different routes. Some of them are not done by the city of Joplin, but we actually do work and coordinate our routes with both MoDOT and the Jasper County Special Road District, because they also provide some service in this same arena. And when you look at the overall map in the region, you can see that it provides a very good grid throughout the entire area for transportation. So your non-collectors, non-arterials, that's what we call our secondary routes. That's going to be your neighborhoods and your more residential nature type streets. So yes, we don't get down into that under most circumstances, but once you get to those major routes, you should have a pretty good pathway to get to wherever you need to go in town.
Okay. Well, while we have the map, we had the map up, and I just want to point out, yeah, it's on our website, joplinmo.org. So for those viewers that were looking at that and trying to fast and furiously find their home and decide, are they on the route, or are they not, they can easily find that on our website. Go to that and then just type in, you know, snow route, and that map will pop up, and they can navigate that on the website. So. You were talking about, you know, going through the going up to the residential areas and not really getting into them, and that's a question I get. You know, I take a lot of general, general public phone calls, and one of those is, why are you not, you know, plowing my road, my street, I guess I should say.
Sure. Usually, if we do, we get the call back that says, "Why did you do that?" Because we'll end up those plows obviously can move a lot of material. And we'll end up making a windrow across your driveway. We can bury a mailbox pretty quick with these things. So it does create some other issues for the community. Part of the country that we're in, periodically we'll get a pretty good sized storm, but the vast majority of our storms and our snow events are pretty minor in nature. And if given just a few days, typically without a real adverse front that comes through, within a couple of days, typically most of it is going to be off the roads just by Mother Nature taking care of itself. And
that is true. And then we just, again, be patient and things of that nature. Is there anything you do prior to the storms, though, you know, before you know the snow is coming in? Is there anything you can do to the roadways to help the slippery slopes?
Well,
so
there's
to speak?
actually, quite a bit that we do, and some definitely things that we do with the roads themselves. In the snow removal area of Public Works, it's always been kind of comical. We usually start on the hottest day of the year in the middle of the summer getting ready for the snow season.
Really?
And
yes, we do.
How does that work?
Well, it's a combination. Number one, that's in the industry, that's when, especially the northern communities, they're obviously not having to battle it, and it's much more significant events for them. That's when the actual snow conferences, as they call it, that's where the industry leaders get together. New methodologies, new equipment is shown. So we actually send some of our staff to the snow conference to see what, it's in the middle of summer too.
That's interesting.
And it's so it's where we learn things. It's where we see the new equipment, new methodologies. We listen to how when we look at what we do and compare it to what, say, goes on in Chicago, Minnesota, this is small potatoes type operation compared to the mammoth snow events they deal with. But we learn from that, and we bring that information back, and then we use it. So in the summer is when we do some training that way. We'll also start ordering our materials for the next season. And we'll inventory what we've got, what we used, and then we'll get that order placed so we get it at a better price, and we again keep the cost down. About a month before the season, I'll call it, starts, is when we pretty well bring in all our equipment, go through it from a maintenance standpoint, start breaking down things that need to be and looked at, redone, fixed, greased, whatever, and make sure everything's in working order. And then within the last few weeks of things, we'll start basically getting our drivers reacclimated to their routes. Each driver is assigned a specific route.
Okay.
If we have new employees, then we'll get them out and they'll drive them with nothing on the roads. They'll just get familiar with where they're going, because as is with most of these events, they come in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And we have to, mobilize and get our crews out there. So that's kind of a quick blush hit of kind of how we get prepared. After we get there, the materials, as we go to these conferences, as we learn things, there's different ways of putting material on the road. There's different types of materials. This year, we're actually going to be trying something. It's been on the market for a while. We just haven't had the equipment until now to be able to try this. All the indications are that we're talking to people, say it ought to be a real good deal for our climate and our conditions. And we're going to be using what's called a brine solution.
Like something you use for the turkey?
A
Okay,
little rougher.
I mean, that's
but, yeah, a little
that's
rougher,
the
but-
brine that I know.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and it is. But we're actually going to have a 5% beet juice solution that gets mixed with it. And this combination has been found to help basically keep the material adhering to the road surface better.
Okay.
And what you have seen over the years, I'm sure, as the highway trucks and the city trucks go down the road and they're spreading out rock salt, it bounces and goes everywhere, and then 5 or 6 vehicles go by at 70 mile an hour or whatever, and there's not much material on the road. That's why you keep applying. And what they've learned is that if you pre-wet it and you use these different materials and things, that it actually will adhere to the road better and not as much of it bounces off, which obviously is a cost savings in the long run. And the next thing it does is we apply this before the snow and ice comes. It's a pre-treatment process as well. It actually inhibits and prevents things from adhering to the road. So the idea then is it's much easier to remove, and we can then make faster progress throughout the community and doing our snow routes.
Does it turn the snow pink? Beet juice?
No, it's a very small.
I was thinking we're going to start a new trend in Joplin, Missouri.
We may add a little bit of dye to the truck that runs, say, in close proximity to your route
Okay,
to work,
good.
and we'll
Pink
let you have a
snow,
little
yeah.
effort.
Well, it's better than yellow snow, as
There it
they
is.
say.
Oh,
so.
definitely, yeah.
So, well, it sounds like there's quite a bit of work going on long before the weather forecast is even announced.
Yeah, we take that part of our operation very seriously, obviously, and we try to be prepared. And it is a moving target. Every storm is different. The weather makes a huge difference in how it reacts and how we then have to react to it. So it's not a single solution for every storm.
That's true. Yeah.
Good point.
Well, I remember in 11, was it February of 2011, we had that blizzard that hit all of Missouri. And I think at that point we did go ahead and go into the residence
Yes, we
area
did.
just because cars. Yeah, man,
And again, it was at the latter end, and you finally go out and you say, okay, here we come. But, and again, you always have that issue of, I just got my driveway opened up, and here comes the city plow and put 3 foot of snow back in my driveway.
I have seen video though, and I think it's a MoDOT video of how to shovel your walk or your driveway so it doesn't do that.
That's
so
correct.
be sure and check out, go out and on YouTube and
It
look
can
for MoDOT.
definitely help.
Yeah, there's certain ways. Or have the neighbor kid go
There you
out
go.
and watch.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
going to do.
that's
Is have the
right.
neighbor kid go out, watch the
That's right.
video,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
A few
go
extra
shovel.
bucks and
Yeah,
get you.
that's it.
Yep.
That's it. So, what about the trolley? We run a trolley and the map system. So I see it in a lot of snow. Rarely does it close down.
Yeah, we pretty well try not to close it down for any reason. It has to be extremely dangerous, and where the safety aspects of things overwhelm our need to provide that level of service out there. So if there is a true snow emergency declared that we are unable to safely provide that service, then we will do so. But that will be a rare and very infrequent thing that we would
So
do.
if we have to, and I know I help Robert Lawley, and of course we have to say Robert Lawley runs the trolley,
Right.
so Lawley's Trolley. We
Right.
love that at the city. It wasn't planned that way, but it is a great.
Robert does a great job
He
for
does
us.
a great job. All his crew does. I mean, we have gotten a lot of compliments on that service. There's a lot, and those numbers are continuing to go up every month. I see them going up.
Yep.
So how do we announce to the general public, if by chance, you see all the closures, the church closures, the school closures, even some businesses closing.
Right.
Do we do the same thing? Are we going to announce it through the television?
Sure, that's our main outlet for disseminating information, and basically all the media outlets that we will make contact with will do that. And then obviously there's we have both the trolley system, but there's also the MAPS service, and the MAPS reservation line will have a message that will be placed on there for individuals to be informed about what's going on at that time as well.
if they call in to find out, because
Right.
often you call the service to know if they're
That's
open.
correct. That's
So,
correct.
and obviously if they're closed, people aren't sitting in the office answering the phone. Most likely.
Correct.
Most
Yeah.
likely. But they may be. I
They
don't
could
know.
be.
They could be. So, well, let's see. Keith, I know there's some other work that we could be doing prior to our storms around our house. And he touched a little bit about the electrical
Yeah.
cords. What about outside and
Well,
things of
there's
that
some
nature?
normal things outside. Let's go around and do the maintenance, do that last mowing, get rid of the leaves as we talked about beforehand, trim the trees back that need to be done out of the way. You get a lot of problem with snow and ice and trees hanging down over power lines. A little bit of trimming back can help with that. You can also, as far as scraping your roof is concerned, a lot of people surprisingly don't go around and close the little vents on their foundations, which helps hold heat in, and for pipes freezing, to help keep your pipes from freezing. I've seen a lot of houses where those are still open from the summertime. You can go around and do some changes on that as well. And of course, then you have the stripping that needs to be done around windows and around doors. If you have at my house, I have a heat pump. And so every other year actually, I have somebody come out and check out the heat pump and go through it and just make sure it's in good shape. Having clean filters is amazing. In the house, if you work with the fire department at all, Nick, you mentioned very well about electrical cords, heaters that sit out in the middle of carpets. You'd be amazed the number of times that we've been to fires and cords have run underneath carpets, they have run underneath chairs. You might see 5 different appliances plugged into the same extension cord.
Yeah.
A little bit of thought about this ahead of time would be a great idea. Open candles, not such a good idea. I like the little warmers that you can buy, and the candles will give you some smell, or for incense or that type of thing, rather than having open flame in candles. People don't worry again so much about that when it's in the summertime and the house is open and the wind's blowing. We used to go to close things up. You can almost know when people have started doing that, because there's a spike in fires. There's a season to it. There's no question.
I had not realized.
Fireplaces, they overbuild the fireplaces at night. There's a lot of people that buy houses that have fireplaces that never grew up around fireplaces. Again, a few YouTube videos would be a really good idea. Starting off with very small fires, being very careful about the kind of wood that you use, not just depending on them to be there all night long. People get up in the middle of the night and check them. It's a really good idea.
Right.
Make sure they've been maintained ahead of time.
Thank you. Yes.
And the chimney's cleaned.
Look up the chimney. Not a bad plan. If it needs to be swept, go for it.
Yeah.
Soot builds up on the inside of chimneys. You get a nice roaring fire. It catches that soot up on fire on the inside of the chimney, and then it just blows flames out the roof or out the top of the chimney and onto the roof, and then that's a problem.
Yeah. That does create a problem.
Been to a few fires like that.
And that is really too bad when that happens. So, the old adage that my dad always, or not adage, but the old thing he told me, have the blanket, like you said. Kitty litter. He always had me carry kitty litter and a shovel.
Yeah.
So
Throw it under the tires.
for traction.
For traction.
I never had to do that, but I assume that's what it was for.
Yeah.
So do you still see people doing that for the most part, or do they just pick up the phone now that everybody has a cell phone and call somebody?
You do, but I'm going to have to throw out a word of caution there too, especially if people are stuck on the road or out there and adjacent to the road. That, again, if you've slid off the road or if you've had issues, that means somebody else may be coming right down the same path. So if you get out of your vehicle and you're getting out there to do something like that where you're trying to get unstuck, really be paying attention to what's going on the street adjacent to you.
That's great advice.
That's somebody else is going to be joining you right there.
Yeah. If it's a slippery path, yeah, you're right. You're not the only one going to be taking it. So. Well, I know in the winter, and I don't know, Keith, if you're able to help us with this, the police sometimes send out their emergency road conditions. What exactly does that mean?
It means that, number one, you need to pay attention to the fact that there's problems with the roads. That seems to be a reoccurring theme that we're doing through here.
Yes.
That there are certain roads that are going to be plowed and going to be clean. And by extension, there are several that aren't going to be. Consider not using those particular roads and use the ones that are out there. I don't know that people so much do snow chains anymore. Tires are kind of all season type tires anymore, so you don't really see much of that.
Well, and I know that front-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, all these cars, and so know what kind of vehicle you drive. My husband has had to educate me a little bit on which tires are pulling when, and I can't tell you what that is. He will tell me again when it snows. So sorry, I'm one of those. I'm not a vehicle. I don't understand. So, but you know, when you do have an accident, if you would have a fender bender, just exchange information with the person, and you know, insurance and contact information, things of that nature. Our police are probably responding to unfortunate, you know, maybe some injury.
Yeah,
a lot of calls.
Situations,
yes, more serious. So, you know, again, it's be kind, you know, to yourself, plan ahead, and be kind to the others. Well, to wrap up, we're getting close to the end of our show. Are there any specific tips we want to, you know, reiterate and make sure the public's understanding that, you know, that our snow routes are mainly for the collector routes?
That's correct. And we prioritize, and if the storm is way bad, we actually back up and we'll focus all our efforts on those major routes until we get them back open, and then we'll move back out again and expand back out. So again, it varies with each and every storm. Yeah,
and we didn't talk about stay behind. I mean, how far?
These are large vehicles, and these guys are trying to watch parked vehicles, other things along the sides, and still get the job done safely. So give them the room.
Yeah, that's, you know, they don't turn
they
on
don't
a dime
turn
and they don't
or
stop.
they don't stop quickly. So
right, so just
give them room.
That sounds good. So, Keith, any words of wisdom?
Well, if I could build on Nick was talking about early in the year that you get prepared for winter, and may I suggest just a 2-hour safety check around the house. Walk the cables, walk the connections, look at your electrical outlets, see if you've got any kind of exposed flames, any kind of exposed electrical lines. That old heater that you've had for 27 years, it might be time to take it to the garage and consider something newer with tip-over safety on it. Make sure that your doors and windows are nice and sealed shut. Have a kit, put something in the car, put an extra blanket or two in there. Be able to have that extra battery that we talked about, and just consider, God forbid, we don't want any of this to happen. And it may not just happen to you. You may very well come upon somebody who is in that situation, and you can help them out as well.
That's a great point. So yeah, they may not have planned ahead, but you have the materials to help them. That's great. Well, gentlemen, you have been just a lot of help for me, and I know our viewers are appreciating you as well for the winter weather that we're soon to be facing. Some people really don't like it. Other people don't mind it, just as long as we manage it well. And I think the city does a pretty good job, and I want to thank you both for doing that, and your crews for helping us get through the winter. So thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes our portion of the Joplin Insider Show. I thank you for watching us today, and I hope to see you again next time.